What's good, everybody? I'm gonna go live very, very soon, so make sure you go ahead and leave a like on the video, and then I'll be going live very soon. All right. Also, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment just so I can see who's in here and say what's good. Appreciate it. But like I said, I'll be going live just in about 4 minutes. What's good, Gio? What's good? Appreciate you for stopping by, man. Appreciate you for stopping by. We got a good one for today. We got a good one for today, fellas. Like I said, make sure you go ahead and leave a like. And like I said, just in about 3 minutes, we're finna go to get it started. What's good, Jaden? What's good, Jaden? Appreciate you for actually leaving a comment. Appreciate it. All right, I'm finna go to get started. I don't want to wait, man. I don't want to wait. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 78, talking about the ego versus confidence. Okay, so there's a lot of things I want to unpack on this episode, and one thing I want to mention early on, right? If you have a contrary point of view to this, I want you to interact, and I want to have good discourse about this topic because I feel like a lot of these certain subtopics around this are definitely very interesting for sure. And like I said, I want to make sure I get um, a few different perspectives on some of the things that I'm talking about. Right? If you agree with me, also let me know you agree with me. But other than that, make sure you go ahead and follow me on TikTok, Life of Champ Podcast on TikTok. I post videos every single week on there, as well as make sure you go ahead and leave a like on the YouTube Shorts as well. I've been posting a lot of those as well. Also, I just decided to create shorter form content, that are not shorts, that are a little bit longer than shorts. So if you are interested in those, I also have those going up as well. The last one that I posted is titled "Should Men Show Emotion?" So if you're curious to know my perspective on that, make sure you go ahead and tap in with that as well. It's only like 3 or 4 minutes, something like that. But other than that, we'll go ahead and get it started, right? So ego versus confidence, right? So I want to give you my definition, kind of the way that I see ego and the way I see confidence, right? So ego, right? Ego, in my opinion, is basically you compared to people, right? Is your self worth or your self importance compared to other people, right? Now, the reason why it is slightly different than confidence, right? Confidence, I feel like confidence gets conflated with a lot of different things, and I feel like a lot of people misconstrue what confidence can look like as well, right? With that being said, confidence, in my opinion, is you compared to your past self. That is the way I personally see when somebody's a confident person. Um, they're usually somebody that probably works on themselves to an extent and is better than their former version of themselves, right? That's the way I personally see it. That's crazy how I go live. Everybody starts leaving. That's crazy. But whatever. All right. So that is the foundation, right? That is the ego versus confidence, right? There's a few different elements that I do want to take this podcast for sure. But yeah, I want one thing I want to mention with ego. I feel like a lot of people mention this ego death in a lot of different aspects, right? This society is trying to portray some type of form of ego, not needing the ego. But ego is needed to an extent, right? There's abused forms of ego, but there's also like some self identity stuff that kind of goes hand in hand with ego as well. That I feel like for example, right, you competing with somebody in something, right? I feel like that is ego. That is more of the yeah, but yeah, more you're just competing in general. Right? I feel like that is what I deem to be an essential part of life, right? Whether you would like to admit it or not, I do believe that you're in competition with somebody at the end of the day, right? Somebody's trying to get something and you're trying to get it, right? Whether it's, you with money, right? You making money so you can compete against other people. Like I said, whether you think it is a competition, it can easily be portrayed in a way that is competitive, right? Whether it's a dating marketplace, right? If you're a person who is not working on yourself, then somebody else is going to get your potential wife or potential husband, right? So there's certain things like that. I feel like ego is needed to get you to the highest level of performance, right? I do believe that is something that is true. And like I said, if you have a contrary point to that, make sure and let me know. But that is the way that I personally see it, right? So like let's just say some famous people, right? Or people who achieve something at the highest level. Let's just say, for example, we'll talk basketball, right? Michael Jordan. Everybody knows who Michael Jordan is, right? Everybody knows that he wasn't even mentally. I want to say he wasn't mentally like all there and all stable and all healthy, right? He used a lot of different competition and competitive advantages that even people didn't even know that they were in competition with him. He still viewed it as competition, right? And his ego was definitely needed in order to really get to that highest level, get to that level where he beats out most people, is because he has that ego, right? He has that way of being. And I'm not saying it's the best way to be, but I'm saying if you want to excel at a high level, you might need some type of ego, quite frankly, right? All right. Another element to this podcast that I wanted to mention is going to be irrational confidence and rational competence, right? KJ, appreciate for stopping by. So, first thing I want to talk about is what a lot of people have. A lot of people who just talk shit and don't back it up. A lot of people have irrational confidence. Irrational confidence is basically that, like I said, talking shit can't back it up. Basically, having the ego talk for them, right? Um, you see this a lot with a lot of different types of people, right? They just start talking because they just want to be heard. They don't actually talk because they have some substance or reason behind why they say the things that they say. Um, but with that being said, right? Do not have irrational confidence, right? There are certain times and places where I do believe irrational confidence can apply, but do not outwardly be too irrationally confident around people because it can make them feel like you are delusional, or it can make them even feel less than, right? And obviously, um, that's just the reality of it, right? One thing I will say with irrational confidence, I would say, me personally, I'm a person who I guess can kind of have elements of that within my undefeated mindset, which is something that I talked about in a previous podcast. But basically, it basically a cultivated mindset that is undefeated, in my opinion, is going to have some types of irrational confidence. So things that don't even make any sense, but you still have confidence. So, for example, right, I'll give you one of the examples that I see when I'm competing against someone, right? This is my perspective. This is how champ's brain works, right? When I'm competing against someone, let's just say I have a 50-50 chance of competing against this person, right? But I switch that 50-50 to say that I have the 51% and the other person has the 49. Now, some might view this as irrational, but as long as it gets you to perform and it allows you to have that mental edge, then it could definitely work in your favor, right? But that is not something that I would outwardly say to somebody, right? Of course, I'm talking about it on the podcast, but it's not something I would exactly outwardly say to, like, maybe my competitor, right? Because that would I would be viewed as irrationally confident. But there's certain mindsets that you do need to adopt that can seem to be irrationally confident, but for the most part, do not outwardly speak about these things because, quite frankly, you're gonna look delusional, in my opinion, and I see it all the time. Another thing I want to mention as well, which is the most important thing, one of the most important things that I will say on this podcast, which is going to be rational competence, right? Is the ability to have confidence by having accomplished something, learned a specific thing, or been through a specific experience. And I feel like a lot of people conflate rational competence with arrogance, right? With being cocky, right? Of course, there is a certain way to go about it, right? I'm not saying be a dick about it, right? But I'm saying there's a correct way to be rationally competent and to verbally express that and not have so much negative backlash. And I do believe that even there's people that even try to curate their words in a way where they realistically shouldn't be viewed as cocky or arrogant, but they're still labeled as that because it can make people feel a certain type of way, right? Which brings me to my next point, right? Arrogance is interesting. So for a person who, let's just say there's a person who's accomplished, right? If he starts talking, okay, let's just say there's a winner or a person who's at the top of the dominance hierarchy when it comes to, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Let's just say making money, right? If that person starts talking about how, rationally competent they are in that endeavor, in that financial endeavor, right? It can make a lot of people think negatively of them because they feel negative of themselves, and it is nothing more than our projection, right? That is kind of the way I see it. So people have that label in their back pocket because if a person is acting verbally expressive in a way that hurts their feelings by making them think and self-reflect on themselves and eventually leading to them to the point where they're like, you know what, I'm going to label this person something because I don't like the way that he's saying it because it makes me think about myself. Now that is not communicated at all, right? They'll just call him, he's cocky, or he's arrogant, right? They'll just label him one of these things. But if this person, realistically speaking, is a person who is rationally competent, who's competent in many different endeavors in life, shouldn't he have some right to verbally express the way he lives his life without being labeled anything negatively, right? That is definitely an interesting perspective that I would say I recently adopted, right? I've seen a lot of people calling certain people that I view to be, rationally competent. A lot of people view them in a negative light, and it's because it is partially because they can maybe act like a dick sometimes, right? Like I said, it's a very interesting balance, but at the same time, you got to recognize whether this person is, like I said, irrationally confident or rationally competent, right? There's two different things, right? There's reasons to be a certain way. There's reasons to say certain things if you are a person who, like I said, is competent in that endeavor, right? Then you can act a certain way, you can talk a certain way because you've experienced it, you've been through it, or you learned something from it, right? Or like I said, you accomplished something, right? So with that being said, I want to mention this point. This point was one of the most interesting points that I thought of. It is the comment of being humble, right? This is something I was talking to Anthony about a little earlier. Give me one second. All right, being humble. So why do people say to other people, "Hey, be humble"? You gotta think about that for a second, right? I'm gonna give you my view of why people say to other people, "Hey, be humble," right? It is because I think somebody acting outwardly, let's just say rationally competent, right? They're verbally expressing their successes. They're verbally expressing the fact that they are near the top of the dominance hierarchy, right? I feel like a lot of people can, like I said, take some offense, right? Take some offense to them being at that position, or like I said, make them feel less than, or they can easily envy that person because of that reason. So they say, "Hey, be humble. Do not be very very quiet. Be selective with what you say." Right? That is my personal view. That's how I see when somebody says, "Hey, be humble." I've never heard anybody. This is a point that Anthony had made. He said, "I never heard anybody say to a man who was poor or a man who had less than to be humble. I've never heard of that. It's only the people who are at the very least in the middle of the hierarchy or at the top of the dominance hierarchy, right? And you got to ask yourself why. Why be humble? Why be humble? Why can't you be verbally expressive with you being rationally competent? Why is that? Why is that such a shun thing within today's society? If you're a man who is accomplished and who's done a lot of different things in a lot of different endeavors, why can't you express that? And the second you start to express it, people try to silence you. People try to label you a certain thing that you might not even be, and it's because of the way that they personally feel, because they might feel that they're not at your level, right? So there's certain things like that definitely really made me think, right? And if you're in here right now, I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Make sure to leave a like. But if you're in here right now, I want you to ponder that thought, and I want you to come up with maybe a real reason to be humble, because like I said, if when I get to the point where I want to be at, right, when I'm more on the path of being there, I'm going to be verbally expressive of my rational competence, because that can inspire somebody, right? There's two different ways to view it, right? The people who are rationally competent and speak out, you can either say, "Hey, I want to be more like that person. Why does that person act the way he does?" And then you look into it, he acts this way because he's accomplished a lot of different things, right? So there's that one viewpoint, and then there's this other viewpoint that says, "Hey, be humble," and it comes from being envious of this person, right? So there's two different views that you can have. You can have, "Hey, I want to be like this person," or saying, "Hey, I don't want to be like this person because it makes me feel some type of way. It makes me feel negative about myself because I'm not where he's at, because I haven't put in the time that he put in or she put in, right? So there's certain things like that. There's certain things like that. And of course, like I mentioned, don't be a dick about it. Don't be a dick about it because, like I said, nobody wants to be around somebody who's acting like a dick. Let's keep it 1,000, right? But at the same time, why is it so shunned in today's society for somebody to be outwardly expressive about their successes, about their, um, yeah, basically about their successes, right? About something that they learned, something that they experienced, right? Why is it not okay, right? So if you're in it right now, I want you to give your point of view on that, right? And if you're rewatching this, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment regarding what you think being humble is, or if you have any specific comments towards any of the points that I'd mentioned before, make sure to leave in the comments. But I definitely want to have some very, very interesting discourse with this because it is definitely deserving of that. That's for sure. Also, if you're watching this on Twitch, I appreciate for watching on Twitch. Make sure to leave a follow. I go live twice a week, and I'm going to be going live 3 times a week. I'm going to be doing a separate stream that is not going to be saved on Twitch very, very soon as well. So stay tuned in for that. I'm going to start that in December. But yeah, so that is today's podcast, right? The ego versus the confidence, right? A lot of people speak out of the ego, and a lot of people have no reason to speak out of the ego. But there's some people that use the ego to eventually build the confidence, and then they speak out. And like I said, in my opinion, they get labeled something that they might not be. But like I said, if you're in here, which I got a few people watching, make sure to leave a comment. Even if you don't have much to say, make sure to leave a comment. Like I said, there's 2 ways. There's 2 ways you can handle it, right? Be envious of this person, or use that person as inspiration, motivation, right? 2 ways to view it. For me personally, right? I don't envy anybody. I personally don't envy anybody. I don't have this mindset of, hey, that person needs to be humbled, right? Unless that person is a dick, truly a dick, right? Objectively acting out of pocket, right? Then I'll be like, that person really needs to be humbled, right? But I rarely say that. I rarely say that because I recognize that a lot of people that do speak those certain ways, maybe they have something that I don't. Maybe they are that way because they accomplished something that I just haven't accomplished, right? And then they act that certain way. Like, for example, let's just say I don't know any specific fighters, but let's just say a fighter who's very accomplished, right? Who's a champion, right? Okay, he can act certain ways because he is that guy, right? He is that guy. So to label him something that he might not be is interesting. Nobody is on your level. I'm gonna say that that is a mindset that you've adopted, right? Nobody's on your level. I'm gonna assume that's what it is, right? Um, appreciate that. I appreciate that, KJ. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, man. He said, "Champ, you are a champion, hence the name, my guy. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I appreciate the recognition for sure. I just try my best out here, man. Come on now." But yeah, if you have a different viewpoint, or if you even have the same viewpoint, or if I at least made you think, make sure to go ahead and leave in the comments for sure. But like I said, I'm gonna be a person who's going to verbally express my wins in life, and I want that to hopefully inspire somebody. And now, eventually, I'm probably gonna get to the point where people are going to view that as me being arrogant or me being um, irrationally irrationally confident. But in reality, when I've accomplished all the things that I set out to accomplish, I'm gonna be acting the ways that I rightfully can act, right? Without being a person who's childish and acting irrational, right? Like I said, I feel like a lot of people just have that misconception, and like I said, maybe I'm wrong, maybe those people, maybe every single person that succeeds and talks about it is a dick. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it. I fucking doubt it. Leave it in the comments, man. Leave it in the comments, man. But yeah, these are certain topics that I don't hear many people talk about, right? That's kind of why I like this podcast, and I like making content for y'all because there's certain viewpoints that I have that I haven't heard anybody talk about, and I feel like those definitely need to be mentioned for sure. Right. Another thing that I'll mention, which I'm gonna try to get into it as most as I can, but my knowledge is very limited, right? But it is a concept that I've heard before, right? It is a Freudian, Sigmund Freud. Yeah, I think that's his name. It's a Freudian idea, a concept. What is it? A psychoanalytic concept where they have the id, the ego, and the superego, right? These are these three things, right? So the id is basically your instinctual, primitive mindset, essentially, right? Whether this is being aggressive, being emotionally reactant, or being like I said, sexually, basically primitive, like I said, being like a sexual essence, right? Um, the ego is what's in between the id and the superego. The superego is basically morality in general, right? What is morally right, or what is perceived to be morally right, right? So, with that being said, I kind of hope that makes it a little bit more clear of where you see the ego, because I had defined the ego my own certain way, and hopefully that gives you kind of a little bit more of a fulfilled mindset when it comes to what the ego actually is, right? So, like I said, the ego's balancing between the id, which is going to fall into some of those, like I said, primitive temptations or instincts, and the superego, obviously, or the ego can fall also into the little area of the superego, um, which is basically, like I had mentioned, the morality aspect for sure. That is something that I thought I definitely could mention a little bit. Like I said, I'm not too knowledgeable about it, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it, right? And I've like I said, I've heard a lot of people talk about the not needing an ego, and I don't know if maybe that's my id talking, right? But I don't know if that is the most productive way to live, especially if you want to accomplish something great. Like I said, if you don't care about accomplishing something great, then of course you're gonna downplay people's successes. But I think it's an admirable act to pursue something with your ego. I think it is admirable. Like I said, do not let the shit get to your head. But like I said, don't be a dick about it, right? That's really the only way I can describe. Don't be a dick about it, man. But like I said, hey, if you're him, you have the right to act like him, and it's as simple as that. But yeah, like I said, I want to see y'all leaving comments, man. Y'all gotta help me out. Y'all gotta help me out, man. When I have plenty of more people in here, y'all will come in clutch right now. Y'all will come in clutch. Man, y'all slacking, boy. Y'all slacking, boy. Come on now. What are my thoughts on people who flex too much? Like I said, I feel like that's just there's certain times to flexing too much would suggest that the people around you do not have what you have. Because if you are in a room, let's just say you are a very successful person, right? And you are in a room with people who are ultra successful themselves. There's no such thing as flexing. Think about that. There's no such thing as flexing because everybody in the room could have or maybe even has exactly what you have. So it's literally just conversation, right? That's another thing I wanted to mention as well, right? There's two people. The only way that a person can be too much or be cocky or be what is the word I used earlier, arrogant, right? Is if they're in a room with people where there's a clear definition between the top of the hierarchy and the bottom of the hierarchy. But if everybody's at the top of the hierarchy, right? If a person starts talking about their rational confidence, no feelings get hurt because everybody's on the same level, right? So therefore, that person is not going to be viewed as arrogant, unless, like I said, unless they're being a dick outright. They're not going to be viewed as arrogant. They're not going to be viewed as, that person's being cocky. That person's acting a certain way, right? It's only when there's a clear distinction between the top of the hierarchy and the bottom of the hierarchy. That's where feelings get hurt, and rightfully so. That's a part of life. That's a part of life. I'm not saying I get my feelings hurt. I'm saying, hey, my viewpoint is, hey, level, you better level the hell up. You trying to get to that person's level. That's my viewpoint. But like I said, I know people's viewpoint is, oh, that hurt my feelings because he's acting a certain way, even though he has probably a good reason to act that certain way. Like I said, unless he's being a dick. Thoughts on how people also fake what they have but act like they have it. So let me go back. Let me go back. People flex too much. I think it shows a lack of true confidence. Maybe they're lacking in another area, so they think they need to overcompensate by acting a certain way or having a certain thing. I do not believe that I'm a person who's going to flex too much. I just think that's childish. I also think depending on what you flex, I feel like it can also be materialistic, and I'm not much of a materialistic person. Of course, I'm like everybody else who likes nice things, but I'm not a person who puts people who has nice things super on a pedestal, and I'm not a person that does that because materialism is something that's interesting as well, right? I can get into that, but materialism is a thing that I got over once I started researching exactly what rich people value and what they don't value. Um, don't try to act rich. You either are rich or you're not. Don't try to act a certain way that you're not. Simple. But yeah, thoughts on how people who will fake what they have but act like I have it. I just think that I think you're goofy, right? Stay in your lane. Humble yourself. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. If you're acting irrationally confident and you're putting that in my face, which is that's kind of how I would view flexing or some acting like he has it when he really don't. That's when I would say humble yourself, put the work in, and maybe one day you can be rationally competent to the point where you're talking, and people don't think you're crazy. That's the way I see it personally, though. But yeah, I just think, like I said, stay in your own lane, man. Stay in your own lane, right? But also know you know yourself the best, right? If you feel like you're speaking rationally competent, then just stick to that. Just stick to that, right? There's a lot of things that I speak on um that a lot of people could view as arrogant, or a lot of people could view as cocky, whatever, right? But I do believe that I have developed competence in a lot of different endeavors in life, right? I've at the very least built a foundation um, of competence when it comes to some of the endeavors in life. So when I'm speaking out of these things, I'm not speaking out of these things because I just like to talk shit, right? Or I'm just trying to be overzealous with my confidence, right? And I'm saying it because I actually truly have some competence within that endeavor. So, and I'm never gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm better than you at this. Like that's just like I said, that's just being the dick, right? That's something else, right? But yeah, it's very interesting line to very tiptoe, right? Definitely interesting for sure. But like I said, if you're in here right now, leave a comment. Leave a comment regarding something that I'm talking about. I'm trying to get some interaction out here, man. You got 4 people in here, but nobody's commenting except KJ. KJ holding it down as always. I'm not surprised. Anthony, where you at, man? Where you at, Anthony? He's sleeping. He's sleeping right now. Just got to work out with him. Sleeping. Ain't no way. Also, if you guys have any suggestions on how I can improve the podcast, make sure to go ahead and leave in the comments as well. Whether you're watching this or whether you're watching this live, um, simple ways that you think that I can improve the podcast. Because obviously, the podcast isn't perfect in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, always trying to improve out here. He's at home, man. He would hate. He would hate if you said that. He would hate if you said that. He's at home. Actually, he might not be at home. He might be home now, but he was at Walmart. I know that for sure. Talk about Ant Man. He'd hate that shit. He'd hate that shit for sure. Like for example, one thing I want to mention, right, is people with a good physique, right? A good physique is not something you just get overnight. It's something that you put in the work, and I feel like the people who have that confidence, or rather have that irrational or have that rational competence, can speak, could give advice, and act a certain way because they have built that. Like I said, don't be a dick about it, but and don't like I said, don't have that irrational confidence because you're don't overstep now. But at the same time, those people who have those good physiques that took years to build, they have the right to act certain ways, to say certain things because they've been through things, they've learned certain things, and they've accomplished a physique that is respectable, right? Which, like I said, is one of the most underrated social traits that you can possibly have, which is a good physique. Because if you're a person who has a very good physique, um, it commands respect. It commands respect in a room, whether you would like to admit it or not. It does. One of the Black Life of a Champ podcast shirts releasing. I'm gonna have some. Hopefully next month. By the end of next month, I'm going to be having another drop. So make sure you stay tuned in for that. There's the boy. There's the boy, Anthony. Shout out to Anthony. I know you're late, but it's okay. You made it at least. Appreciate you for stopping by, man. Get that man KJ. Get that man KJ. Look what he said. Look what he said, man. So yeah, I'm gonna go down the list one more time, and then I'll go ahead and end it off. But like I said, if you're watching this right now, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment. If like I said, if you have anything you want to say, right? So ego versus confidence. Ego is basically you compared to other people. You claiming your self-importance or self-worth to be compared to others, which, like I said, your self-importance is only kind of, I guess it is in competition with others, right? Because if you're not comparing your self-importance to somebody else, and quite frankly, you have no reason to even think like that. That's my perspective. That's my perspective. That makes sense. And then confidence is basically you compared to your past you, right? You being competent in areas where you rightfully can't speak that way or act a certain way because you've built yourself up to be that. Um, that's confidence. Like I mentioned, ego is absolutely needed to compete at the highest level. The people who accomplish something great had to have some type of form of ego. You can't be egoless and accomplish something that is great. That is something that is worth recognizing among the masses, right? Unless, like I said, unless ego is some way integrated, even healthily integrated at the very least. And then I wanted to mention as well, like I said, the main point of this entire podcast, which is going to be the irrational confidence, basically talking shit, can't back it up, letting your ego talk instead of actually being able to perform. And like I had mentioned before, there's going to be some things that are going to be within your best interest where you probably can be irrationally confident, right? This is like for me, for example, right? This is the undefeated mindset that I have. So some of these things are within your best interest to have if it's a thought that is within yourself, not exactly something that you outwardly project onto others because like I said, you're going to be viewed as a dick and you're going to be viewed as somebody who's irrationally confident, which is basically having no reason to be confident in that endeavor. Rational competence is also the other thing I wanted to mention as well. Rational competence is basically having the ability to be confident in something that you accomplished, learned from, or experienced, which is a lot of where a lot of people say, hey, this person's arrogant or this person's cocky. It's somebody who's verbally expressing, and I would say excessively verbally expressing their rational competence within an endeavor. But like I said, don't be a dick about it, fellas. I'm gonna keep saying that. That's the motto for this podcast, man. Don't be a dick about it, man. Simple. But yeah, pretty much the rational competence is definitely something that if you're an accomplished person, you're going to have this, and it should be way more socially accepted because you should be able to verbally express your successes, even if it makes other people feel uncomfortable. If it makes them feel uncomfortable, that is not something that you exactly have to, you know, I don't want to say take into account. You have to take into account to an extent, but at the same time, just because you lack doesn't mean that I should humble myself because of you lacking, right? Um, you also try to build those people up as well, right? Also, like I had mentioned, right, the people that are on the same level, if they start talking and being rationally competent and verbally expressing the man, get him out of here, man. Get him out of here, man. Goofy, man. He's goofy, man. Get him out of here, man. But like I had mentioned, the rational competence, right? People who are on the same level, who are at the top of the dominance hierarchy, they are going to be they're going to be just talking. There's no cocky, there's no arrogance to any of that because quite frankly they're on the same level, right? It's only irrational competence can be viewed as, like I said, cocky or arrogant only when there is a clear distinction between the dominance hierarchy. So like let's just say you have a person who is very wealthy and you have a person who's very, very poor, right? That person who's very poor is probably going to feel one of two ways when talking about the person who is wealthy, right? They're either going to have one mindset of saying, hey, this person is better than me, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel like I'm lacking. And when he starts talking about it, it makes me feel so uncomfortable to the point where I have to label him something. Or you could take this one point of view where you say, hey, I'm a person who's not in that position, but one day I would like to be in that position. And me wanting to be in that position one day, I should probably learn something from this person, right? And that person has the right to speak in those certain types of ways, of course, like I said, without being a dick. But yeah, man. Imagine hopping into the pod and talking some nonsense, boy. Talking some absolute nonsense in the comments, man. Tragic. Yeah, and then the last point that I will make, and like I said, if you have any comments, I'll leave a few minutes for extra comments, but is going to be humble, being humble, right? There's this perception that when somebody starts talking, maybe even having rational competence, once they start talking, to be humble, humble yourself, right? Act a certain way, or stay in this box because if you don't stay in this box, it's gonna make me feel uncomfortable, right? I think the phrase of being humble is something that is to avoid people being envious of you that are less successful than you are or less competent in an endeavor than you are, right? I think it should be socially accepted and socially embraced to speak on your successes on it, and if you're thriving at something, even if it can make somebody feel uncomfortable. And if they feel uncomfortable, it is nothing more than an outward projection of the way they feel about themselves at the end of the day. It is not exactly something that has actual like morality involved, right? Like I said, if you are a person who's lacking in something and you are envious of somebody who has something that you don't, um, you're nothing more than just doing an outward projection. As simple as that, right? I don't know another way to describe it, right? But yeah, yeah, that is the topic for today's podcast. If you have any comments, last second comments before I go and end it off, make sure you go and leave in the comments. One more plug. Make sure you go ahead and follow the TikTok Life of Champ podcast, as well as make sure you go ahead and tap in with the YouTube Shorts. I post YouTube Shorts every single week, so make sure you leave a like on those. I had one hit 1.3K last or this week, so that one did pretty good. Um, but yeah, yeah. Also follow me on Twitch as well. If you're watching this on Twitch, make sure you go and leave a follow as well. I go live twice a week, and starting in December, I'm going to be going live 3 times a week. Um, one's going to be a regular stream, and the other 2 are going to be podcasts. So make sure you stay tuned in for that for sure. I agree with this, but I also view it as fuel in the fire, so you could be inspired or to get that grind, to be like that person. I agree. I agree. Like I said, there's a lot of people that view it that negative way, and I don't think that's the correct paradigm to have because I don't think that is a paradigm that suits you best. And like I had mentioned on the Undefeated Mindset podcast, you shouldn't believe in something. You shouldn't even think a certain way if it's not going to benefit you in some type of way. So change the way you feel about that, right? So like I said, if you're a person who sees a person who's successful and you envy that person, truly envy this person because you don't have it, because you lack, try to use that emotion that you have and try to direct it in a positive way because there's no point of sulking in a negative emotion. No point. You're not doing yourself a favor in long term. You're not. But try to use it as fuel, like KJ had said, right? Fuel to the fire. Be inspired by this person. Ask questions. How did he get this? Why is he like that? Um, ask all certain questions, and it's going to be a better paradigm to have in life than to be envious of somebody else's success. Like there's many people who are successful that also mention people that are successful who talk to other successful people. They don't envy them. They don't envy them. It's only the people who are less than, who are, you know, at least within that endeavor is viewed that can be viewed as less than, that have those negative views on people who are successful, right? Yeah, so that was today's podcast. Like I said, I'll give you like a few more minutes to leave a comment, but other than that, um, I said pretty much what I wanted to say. I'll be having another podcast on next Tuesday. The schedule of Tuesday, Thursday podcasts are going to be going back to normal next week. I just did it a little differently because of Thanksgiving. Also, if you're watching this, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you spent a lot of time with your family and soaked it all up because you don't have very moments where you can have all your family, or like I said, ideally, if you do have all your family around you, you're doing great. You're doing great, and like I said, never take that for granted for sure. Be very very thankful for that. But like I said, I hope y'all had a good Thanksgiving because I did. That's for damn sure. I did. That's for damn sure. So yeah, but then like I said, I'll give you like 3 more minutes. Man, you should have been over here, man. Should have been over here, man. I know you got your people down there for sure, but should have been over here, man. It was a good time. It was a good time. Yeah, but happy late Thanksgiving for sure. Yeah, for sure. Appreciate for watching, by the way, man. Appreciate for watching. Hopefully, I'll be having another podcast or another live stream of a released album very very soon. Hopefully, Big Sean releases the album very very soon, man. Come on now. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. He mentioned something the other day about a new album, so I definitely like those live streams where I can listen to music live, get the first genuine reaction, even if it gets copyrighted sometimes. It's definitely a great time. Definitely a great time. And if you have not experienced that, I do go live on certain album drops. So if you are interested in the artist and want to see me post something one time and then take it off the internet, let me know for sure. Or at least delete it off YouTube, at least, right? But yeah. We need to get Nightbot. We got to get Nightbot's ass out of here, man. You doing the most out here, man. Yeah, but other than that, fellas, this was the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 78, talking about the ego versus confidence, as well as rational competence and irrational confidence. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you go and leave a like. If you are rewatching this, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment on one of your favorite points that I had made. Other than that, fellas, I'll leave you guys off with the last phrase, fellas. Fellas out here, we don't just work, man. We outwork. So make sure you outworking these motherfuckers every single day. Y'all have a good night, man.